Staff Sergeant Maya Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead as she walked across the dusty ground of Forward Operating Base Alpha. The desert sun was beating down hard, even though it was only 9 in the morning. She had been cleaning her standard issue rifle when Corporal Jackson ran up to her with urgent news. "Sarge, General Morrison wants to see you right now in his tent," Jackson said, breathing hard from running. His face looked worried, which made Maya feel nervous too. Maya looked down at her dirty uniform and dusty boots. She was not prepared to meet with the commanding general of their entire base. General Morrison was known throughout the military as a tough leader who did not accept excuses from anyone. Soldiers who met with him usually came out looking either very happy or very scared. "Did he say what this was about?" Maya asked as she quickly tried to brush the dust off her uniform. "No idea, but he looked serious." "Real serious," Jackson replied before hurrying away to his own duties. Maya took a deep breath and started walking toward the command area of the base. Her mind was racing with possibilities. Had she done something wrong during the last mission? Maybe there was a problem with her performance reports, or perhaps someone had complained about her leadership style with the newer soldiers. As she approached the large military tent that served as General Morrison's office, Maya could hear voices inside. She recognized Lieutenant Rodriguez and Sergeant Major Williams talking in low, serious tones. Their conversation stopped suddenly when she knocked on the tent pole. "Enter," came the general's deep voice from inside. Maya stepped into the tent and immediately stood at attention. "Staff Sergeant Chen reporting as ordered, sir." General Morrison looked up from his desk, which was covered with maps, reports, and communication equipment. He was a tall man in his 50s with gray hair and sharp blue eyes that seemed to see everything. His uniform was perfectly pressed despite the harsh desert conditions, and his medals showed decades of military service. "At ease, Sergeant," the general said, but his voice sounded strange. Maya had heard him speak before during base briefings, and he usually sounded confident and commanding. Today he seemed uncertain about something. Maya relaxed her posture slightly but remained alert. She noticed that Lieutenant Rodriguez and Sergeant Major Williams were standing near the back of the tent, watching her carefully. The atmosphere in the room felt heavy with unspoken tension. "Chen, how long have you been with our unit?" General Morrison asked while shuffling through papers on his desk. 8 months, sir. I transferred here from the 82nd Airborne Division in January." The general nodded but continued looking at his paperwork instead of meeting her eyes. This was unusual behavior for him. Maya had observed him during previous meetings with other soldiers, and he always maintained direct eye contact when speaking with his personnel. "Your marksmanship scores have been impressive since your arrival," he continued. "Top 5% in every qualification test." Maya felt a small sense of relief. Maybe this meeting was about something positive after all. "Thank you, sir. I work hard to maintain my shooting skills." General Morrison finally looked up at her, and Maya could see something in his expression that she could not identify. It was not anger or disappointment. It seemed more like curiosity mixed with doubt. "I have a special assignment for you, Sergeant Chen," the general said, his voice becoming more formal. He gestured toward something on his desk that Maya had not noticed before. Her eyes widened when she saw what he was pointing at. Lying on the metal surface of his field desk was a Barrett M82 sniper rifle. The massive weapon was nearly 5 feet long and weighed over 30 pounds. Its dark metal finish reflected the harsh lighting in the tent, making it look both beautiful and intimidating. Maya had seen Barrett rifles before, but she had never been authorized to use one. These weapons were reserved for the most elite snipers in the military. They could accurately hit targets at distances of over a mile and were capable of penetrating armored vehicles. Only soldiers with years of specialized training and proven combat experience were trusted with such powerful equipment. "Sir," Maya began, trying to hide her surprise, "I am honored by your confidence in me, but I should mention that I have never been certified on the Barrett system." General Morrison waved his hand dismissively. "Tomorrow morning, you will be joining Lieutenant Rodriguez's reconnaissance team for a mission in Sector 7. Intelligence reports suggest enemy activity along the mountain ridges, and we need someone with good shooting skills to provide overwatch." Maya felt her heart rate increase. This was not a typical assignment for someone of her rank and experience level. Reconnaissance missions were usually handled by the most experienced soldiers in the unit, and carrying a Barrett rifle meant she would be expected to engage targets at extreme distances if necessary. The weapon is already zeroed and ready for use, the general continued. Sergeant Major Williams will brief you on the basic operation procedures this afternoon. Maya glanced at Sergeant Major Williams, who gave her a slight nod. His expression was unreadable, but she could sense that he was also surprised by this sudden assignment. Sir, may I ask why I was selected for this particular mission? Maya asked carefully. She wanted to understand the reasoning behind such an important assignment. For the first time during their conversation, General Morrison looked directly at her for several seconds. His blue eyes seemed to be evaluating her, as if he was trying to determine something important about her character or abilities. Because I believe you can handle it, Sergeant, he said finally. Sometimes we need to give our people opportunities to prove themselves under challenging circumstances. Maya sensed there was more to his decision than he was revealing, but she knew better than to push for additional information. Officers at the general's level made decisions based on factors that regular soldiers were not always privy to understanding. I will not let you down, sir, Maya said with conviction. See that you do not, General Morrison replied, his tone becoming stern again. This mission is critical to our operations in this area. Failure is not an option. As Maya prepared to leave the tent, she felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Tomorrow she would be carrying one of the most powerful rifles in the military arsenal, and people's lives might depend on her ability to use it effectively. She had trained hard for moments like this, but she had never expected such an opportunity to come so soon in her assignment to this unit. The alarm clock in Maya's tent buzzed at 4:30 in the morning, but she was already awake. She had spent most of the night thinking about the mission ahead and the massive Barrett rifle that was now her responsibility. The weapon lay beside her cot, carefully wrapped in protective cloth, its weight a constant reminder of the trust General Morrison had placed in her. Maya quickly dressed in her combat uniform and gathered her gear. The desert air was surprisingly cold in the early morning hours, and she could see her breath forming small clouds as she stepped outside her tent. Other soldiers were already moving around the base preparing for their own missions and duties. She made her way to the equipment tent where Sergeant Major Williams had instructed her to meet him for a quick review of the Barrett's operation. Williams was waiting for her with a cup of coffee and a serious expression on his weathered face. Morning, Chen. Ready for your crash course on the big gun? Williams asked as he handed her the coffee. As ready as I can be, Sergeant Major, Maya replied, accepting the warm drink gratefully. Williams unwrapped the Barrett rifle and laid it on a clean table. Even in the dim lighting of the tent, the weapon looked impressive and intimidating. He spent the next 30 minutes explaining the rifle's basic operation, safety procedures, and maintenance requirements. Maya listened carefully, taking mental notes of every detail. This is not your average rifle, Chen, Williams explained as he demonstrated the loading procedure. The .50 caliber round can punch through engine blocks and light armor. You need to respect what this weapon can do. Maya nodded, handling the rifle carefully as Williams showed her the proper techniques for carrying and positioning it. The weight was substantial, but she found it manageable with the right technique and posture. One more thing, Williams said as they finished the lesson. The general did not explain why he chose you for this assignment, but I want you to know that carrying the Barrett is usually reserved for our most experienced snipers. Whatever his reasons, do not let him down. Maya felt the pressure of expectation settling on her shoulders once again. I understand, Sergeant Major. I will do my best. At 6:00 sharp, Maya reported to the vehicle staging area where Lieutenant Rodriguez was waiting with the rest of the reconnaissance team. Rodriguez was a competent officer in his late 20s who had served 2 previous deployments in the region. He was known for being thorough in his planning and careful with his soldiers' safety. Good morning, Sergeant Chen, Rodriguez said as she approached with the Barrett rifle case. I hope you are ready for what should be a routine observation mission. The other team members were already loading their equipment into the armored vehicle. Corporal Jackson, whom Maya knew from previous operations, gave her a friendly nod. Specialist Kim, a communications expert, was testing his radio equipment. Private Torres, the newest member of their unit, was double-checking his medical supplies. All three soldiers stopped what they were doing when they saw Maya carrying the Barrett case. Their expressions showed surprise and curiosity. In their unit, seeing someone carry the Barrett was like watching a special event that did not happen very often. "Sarge, is that what I think it is?" Corporal Jackson asked, his eyes fixed on the rifle case. "The general assigned me the Barrett for today's mission," Maya replied, trying to sound casual about it. Specialist Kim let out a low whistle. "That is some serious firepower. I have only seen it used twice since I have been here, both times by Master Sergeant Thompson." Maya knew about Master Sergeant Thompson. He was a legendary sniper who had been with the unit for over 15 years and had earned multiple commendations for his marksmanship skills. Being compared to him, even indirectly, made Maya feel both honored and nervous. Lieutenant Rodriguez spread aerial photographs across the hood of their vehicle and began explaining their mission. "We will establish an observation post on Hill 247, about 12 kilometers north of here. Intelligence reports suggest enemy supply convoys have been using the road through Valley Creek to transport weapons and ammunition." Maya studied the photographs carefully, noting the terrain features and potential shooting positions. The hill offered excellent visibility over the valley below, but it would also leave them exposed to enemy observation. "Our job is to watch and report," Rodriguez continued. "We are not looking for a fight, but we need to be prepared if trouble finds us. That is why Sergeant Chen will be providing overwatch with the Barrett." Private Torres raised his hand nervously. "Sir, how long will we be out there?" "The mission is scheduled for 12 hours, but we could be extended if significant enemy activity is observed," Rodriguez answered. "Any other questions?" Corporal Jackson glanced at Maya before speaking. "Sir, not to question orders, but why was Sergeant Chen selected for the Barrett? I thought Master Sergeant Thompson usually handled our precision shooting requirements." "Lieutenant?" Rodriguez looked uncomfortable with the question. Maya could tell he was wondering the same thing but had not wanted to ask it directly. "Thompson is on leave visiting his family," Rodriguez said after a moment. "The general felt Sergeant Chen was the best available option for this mission." Maya appreciated that Rodriguez had not made a big deal out of the unusual assignment, but she could sense that everyone was curious about the real reasons behind the general's decision. She had been wondering the same thing herself. As they loaded into the armored vehicle, Maya carefully secured the Barrett rifle and checked her other equipment. She carried extra ammunition, a spotting scope, and survival gear for the extended mission. The weight of her pack was heavier than usual, but she felt prepared for whatever they might encounter. The vehicle rumbled to life, and they began their journey toward Hill 247. Maya looked out the small window at the passing desert landscape and thought about the day ahead. She had trained extensively with standard rifles, but the Barrett was in a completely different category. Today would test her skills in ways she had never experienced before. Specialist Kim broke the silence in the vehicle. "Sarge, what made you want to become a sniper?" Maya considered the question carefully before answering. "I always believed that precision and patience were more valuable than speed and aggression. Sometimes one well-placed shot can save more lives than 100 poorly aimed ones." The other soldiers nodded thoughtfully at her response. Maya hoped that today she would have the opportunity to prove that philosophy correct. The armored vehicle climbed the rocky trail toward Hill 247 for nearly 2 hours. Maya felt every bump and turn as she held the Barrett rifle case steady in her lap. The desert landscape outside looked empty and peaceful, but she knew that enemy forces could be hiding anywhere among the rocks and sand dunes. Lieutenant Rodriguez used his radio to check in with base command as they approached their destination. The crackling voice on the other end confirmed that no other friendly forces were operating in the area, which meant anything they encountered would likely be hostile. "End of the road, people," Rodriguez announced as the driver stopped the vehicle near the base of the hill. "From here we climb on foot." Maya shouldered her heavy pack and carefully lifted the Barrett rifle case. The climb to the observation post would take about 30 minutes, and she needed to conserve her energy for the long day ahead. The rocky terrain was challenging, especially while carrying the extra weight of the precision rifle and its ammunition. Corporal Jackson took point during the climb, carefully checking for signs of enemy activity or improvised explosive devices. Specialist Kim followed with his radio equipment, maintaining communication with their base. Private Torres carried extra water and medical supplies, while Maya and Lieutenant Rodriguez brought up the rear. The observation post was a natural rock formation near the top of Hill 247 that provided excellent cover and visibility. Maya immediately began setting up the Barrett rifle on its bipod legs, adjusting the position to get the best view of the valley below. The rifle felt solid and stable once she had it properly positioned. Lieutenant Rodriguez used his binoculars to scan the area, while Maya looked through the Barrett's powerful scope. The road through Valley Creek was clearly visible, winding between rocky hills and sparse desert vegetation. Maya could see for miles in every direction, which made her feel both powerful and exposed at the same time. "Good visibility today," Rodriguez commented as he continued his surveillance. "If anyone is moving supplies through that valley, we will definitely see them." Maya adjusted the scope settings and checked the wind conditions. The Barrett rifle was capable of hitting targets at distances over 1 mile. But accuracy at those ranges required careful attention to environmental factors like wind speed and direction. For the first 3 hours, nothing happened. The team took turns watching different sections of the valley, while Maya kept the Barrett rifle trained on the main road. The desert sun was getting hotter, and Maya could feel sweat building up under her helmet and body armor. Around noon, Specialist Kim spotted movement to the east. "Lieutenant, I see dust clouds about 2 miles out. Looks like vehicles heading our way." Maya swung the Barrett scope toward the area Kim had indicated. Through the powerful magnification, she could see a convoy of 3 unmarked pickup trucks moving slowly along the dirt road. The vehicles appeared to be heavily loaded with cargo covered by canvas tarps. "I count approximately 12 individuals," Maya reported as she watched the convoy through her scope. "All appear to be armed with assault rifles and at least 1 rocket launcher." Lieutenant Rodriguez studied the convoy through his binoculars. "Those are not government forces. No uniforms, no official markings on the vehicles. This is definitely what intelligence was warning us about." As the convoy drew closer, Maya could see more details through her scope. The men in the trucks were clearly hostile forces, probably moving weapons and supplies to support attacks against coalition forces in the region. One of the trucks had a mounted machine gun that could cause serious damage to friendly patrols. Suddenly, the lead vehicle stopped about 800 meters from their position. Maya watched as armed men jumped out of the trucks and began scanning the surrounding hills with binoculars. Someone had spotted something that made them suspicious. "They know we are here," Rodriguez whispered into his radio as he called for backup support. Through her scope, Maya saw one of the enemy fighters pointing a rocket-propelled grenade launcher directly toward a small group of civilian shepherds who had been walking along the road with their animals. The civilians had no idea they were in danger and continued walking casually toward the armed convoy. "Lieutenant, I have a clear shot on the RPG operator," Maya reported quietly. "Range is approximately 1,200 meters." Rodriguez looked at the situation through his binoculars. The enemy fighter was clearly preparing to fire at the innocent civilians, probably to prevent them from reporting the convoy's location to coalition forces. The other enemy fighters were taking defensive positions behind their vehicles. "Take the shot, Sergeant," Rodriguez ordered. "Save those civilians." Maya controlled her breathing the way she had practiced hundreds of times during training. The Barrett rifle felt steady in her hands as she made final adjustments to her aim. She calculated the bullet's path, accounting for the distance, wind conditions, and the slight upward angle of her shooting position. The crosshairs in her scope settled on the enemy fighter with the rocket launcher. Maya could see him clearly, through the powerful magnification, his finger moving toward the weapon's trigger. The civilian shepherds were still walking unknowingly toward danger. Time seemed to move in slow motion as Maya squeezed the Barrett's trigger. The massive rifle roared like thunder, its sound echoing across the valley. The heavy .50 caliber bullet traveled the 1,200-meter distance in less than 2 seconds. Maya watched through her scope as the enemy fighter with the rocket launcher dropped to the ground. Her shot had been perfect, hitting the target center mass and neutralizing the immediate threat to the innocent civilians. The other enemy fighters dove for cover behind their vehicles, confused and frightened by the sudden sniper attack. Target down, Maya reported calmly as she worked the Barrett's bolt action to chamber another round. Threat to civilians eliminated. The remaining enemy fighters abandoned their vehicles and scattered into the rocky terrain, carrying whatever equipment they could manage. Maya kept her scope trained on the area, ready to engage additional targets if necessary, but the enemy forces had lost their courage and were retreating as quickly as possible. Lieutenant Rodriguez was already calling for a recovery team to secure the abandoned vehicles and investigate their cargo. Maya continued watching through her scope as the civilian shepherds hurried away from the area, probably not even understanding how close they had come to being killed. The return journey to Forward Operating Base Alpha took place during the hottest part of the afternoon. Maya carefully packed the Barrett rifle while Lieutenant Rodriguez coordinated with the recovery team that would investigate the abandoned enemy vehicles. The successful mission had prevented weapons from reaching hostile forces and saved innocent lives, but Maya felt surprisingly calm about her actions. Corporal Jackson could not stop talking about the shot he had witnessed. "Sarge, I have never seen anything like that. 1,200 meters in desert wind conditions and you dropped that guy like he was standing right next to us." Private Torres, who had been quiet during most of the mission, finally spoke up. "How did you stay so calm when you were aiming? I would have been shaking like a leaf." Maya secured the Barrett's case in the vehicle before answering. "Training and practice. When you focus on the fundamentals, everything else becomes automatic. The rifle does most of the work if you do your part correctly." Specialist Kim was monitoring radio traffic during their drive back to base. Multiple units were reporting the successful mission, and word was spreading quickly through the communication networks. Maya realized that her shot was going to attract more attention than she had expected. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked back at Maya from the front passenger seat. "Chen, I want you to know that was some of the finest marksmanship I have ever witnessed. That civilian family owes their lives to your skill and quick thinking." When their vehicle approached the main gate of Forward Operating Base Alpha, Maya could see that something unusual was happening. More soldiers than normal were gathered near the entrance, and several officers were standing together in small groups talking excitedly. As soon as their vehicle stopped, Sergeant Major Williams approached with a broad smile on his face. "Outstanding. Work out there, Sergeant Chen. The whole base is talking about your shot." Maya climbed out of the vehicle with her equipment, feeling slightly overwhelmed by the attention. She had always preferred to do her job quietly without drawing unnecessary notice to herself. Being the center of attention made her uncomfortable. "Word travels fast around here," Williams continued as he helped her unload the Barrett rifle case. "General Morrison wants to see you for debriefing as soon as you get cleaned up." Several soldiers approached Maya as she walked toward the equipment tent. Some wanted to congratulate her on the successful mission, while others were curious about the details of her long-range shot. Maya answered their questions politely but kept moving toward her tent. Master Sergeant Thompson, the unit's most experienced sniper, was waiting for her outside the equipment tent. Maya had heard stories about his legendary shooting skills, but she had never spoken with him directly before. "Sergeant Chen, I heard about your work today," Thompson said with a respectful nod. 1,200 meters with the Barrett under field conditions is impressive shooting. Mind if I ask where you learned your technique? Maya felt honored that such an experienced sniper would take time to speak with her. "I have always been interested in precision shooting, Master Sergeant. I spend a lot of time practicing and studying ballistics." Thompson studied her face carefully as if he was trying to determine something important about her background. "Your form and breathing control must be exceptional to make that kind of shot on your first time with the Barrett. Most soldiers need months of training before they can handle it effectively." Before Maya could respond, Thompson was called away by another soldier. She continued toward her tent, thinking about his comments. Something in his expression suggested that he suspected there was more to her story than she had revealed. Maya took a quick shower and changed into a clean uniform before reporting to General Morrison's tent for her debriefing. She wanted to look professional when she returned the Barrett rifle and explained the details of the mission. The command tent was busier than usual when she arrived. Several officers were studying maps and discussing operations, while communications personnel We're managing radio traffic from multiple units in the field. General Morrison looked up from his desk when Maya entered and stood at attention. His expression was different from the day before when he had given her the assignment. The uncertainty and doubt she had noticed were gone, replaced by something that looked like surprise and professional respect. At ease, Sergeant Chen, the general said as he gestured toward a chair. I have already received Lieutenant Rodriguez's initial report, but I would like to hear your version of today's events. Maya sat down and began explaining the mission from her perspective. She described the setup at the observation post, the appearance of the enemy convoy, and the threat to the innocent civilians. When she reached the part about taking the shot, she tried to keep her account factual and modest. General Morrison listened without interrupting, occasionally taking notes on a pad of paper. His attention to detail seemed more intense than usual for a routine debriefing session. The recovery team found significant weapons and ammunition in those abandoned vehicles, the general said when Maya finished her report. Your actions prevented those supplies from reaching enemy forces who were planning attacks against our patrols. Maya nodded, but did not comment. She was more interested in the fact that innocent people had been saved than in the strategic implications of the mission. General Morrison stood up and walked around his desk to where Maya was sitting. Sergeant Chen, I need to ask you a direct question. That shot today was not the work of an average soldier. Where did you acquire that level of marksmanship? Skill? Maya felt her heart rate increase slightly. The general's question suggested that he was beginning to suspect there was more to her background than her transfer paperwork had indicated. Sir, I have always worked hard to maintain the highest possible standards in all my military skills, she replied carefully. The general studied her face for several seconds before returning to his desk. He picked up a manila folder that Maya recognized as her personnel file and held it without opening it. This file contains your basic service record from your previous unit, but it seems to be missing some important details, he said quietly. Tomorrow I will be making some phone calls to get a more complete picture of your qualifications and experience. The next morning, Maya was working on routine maintenance of her equipment when Corporal Jackson found her with an urgent message. General Morrison wanted to see her immediately in his office tent. The tone in Jackson's voice suggested this was not a routine meeting. Maya quickly cleaned her hands and straightened her uniform before walking across the base to the command area. She had spent most of the night wondering what the general had discovered about her background. Her transfer from the 82nd Airborne had involved some administrative confusion, and certain details about her specialized training had not been properly included in her paperwork. When she entered the general's tent, Maya noticed that her personnel file was now much thicker than it had been the day before. Several additional documents were spread across his desk, and she could see official letterheads from various military training facilities and command centers. Sergeant Chen, please have a seat, General Morrison said, his voice more formal than usual. I spent considerable time yesterday evening making phone calls to your previous commanders and training instructors. Maya sat down and waited for the general to continue. She could see that he had been reading through documentation that she recognized as records from her advanced military education and specialized training programs. I need to begin by offering you an apology, the general said, looking directly at her for the first time since she had entered the tent. When I assigned you the Barrett rifle 2 days ago, I was testing you based on incomplete information about your qualifications and experience. Maya remained silent, unsure how to respond to such an unexpected statement from her commanding officer. She had never heard General Morrison apologize to anyone during her 8 months at the base. The general picked up one of the documents from his desk and read from it quietly. Advanced Infantry Training School, graduated first in class, Urban Warfare Instructor Certification, Advanced Marksmanship Program completed with honors, Airborne School, Ranger School, and Combat Leadership Course. Maya felt a mixture of relief and apprehension as the general read through her actual training record. She had worked hard to earn those qualifications, but she had learned that sometimes people treated you differently when they knew about your advanced training. More importantly, the general continued, I spoke with Colonel Harris from your previous unit. He explained the circumstances of your transfer and the administrative problems that resulted in incomplete paperwork being sent to our unit. General Morrison set down the documents and looked at Maya with an expression that showed both embarrassment and newfound respect. Sergeant Chen, you were not transferred to our unit because of disciplinary problems or performance issues. You were sent here because you requested assignment to a combat unit where you could use your specialized skills. Maya nodded, finally able to speak freely about her background. Yes, sir. I wanted to serve in a forward-deployed unit where my training could make a difference in real combat situations. The general stood up and walked to a wall map that showed their area of operations. According to Colonel Harris, you completed one of the most demanding sniper training programs in our military. The Advanced Designated Marksman course has a failure rate of over 70%. Maya had difficult memories of that 18-month training program. The physical demands had been challenging, but the mental pressure and technical requirements had pushed her to her absolute limits. Many talented soldiers had been unable to complete the course successfully. The program included advanced ballistics, fieldcraft, camouflage techniques, and precision shooting under extreme conditions, Maya said. We trained in desert, mountain, and urban environments with every type of rifle and ammunition the military uses. General Morrison turned back to face her with a serious expression. Why did you not inform me about this specialized training when you arrived at our unit? Maya considered her answer carefully before responding. Sir, I have learned that some commanders prefer to evaluate soldiers based on their current performance, rather than their previous training. I wanted to prove myself through my actions rather than my credentials. The general sat back down at his desk and picked up another document. Colonel Harris also mentioned that you were recommended for promotion to staff sergeant, specifically because of your leadership potential and technical expertise. Maya felt uncomfortable discussing her own qualifications, but she realized that the general needed to understand her full background in order to make appropriate assignments for future missions. I completed advanced courses in ballistics calculation, weather analysis, and target identification, she said. The training also included instruction on working with different types of rifle systems, including the Barrett 50 caliber platform. General Morrison's eyebrows raised slightly at this information. So when I assigned you the Barrett 2 days ago, you were already familiar with its operation and capabilities. Yes, sir. I have fired over 500 rounds through Barrett rifles during my training. The shot I made yesterday was well within my normal capabilities under those conditions. The general shook his head slowly, as if he was still processing this new information. Sergeant Chen, I assigned you that mission because I wanted to test your potential under pressure. I had no idea that you were already one of the most qualified snipers in our entire unit. Maya waited for the general to continue, sensing that he had more to say about her situation and future assignments. I also spoke with Master Sergeant Thompson this morning, General Morrison said. After observing your performance yesterday, he suspected that you had advanced training. He recommended that you be assigned as our unit's primary designated marksman. Maya felt a sense of validation hearing that Master Sergeant Thompson, whom she greatly respected, had recognized her abilities and endorsed her for increased responsibilities. General Morrison opened her personnel file and removed a small document that Maya recognized immediately. It was her official certification from the Advanced Designated Marksman program, signed by the commandant of the training facility and endorsed by multiple senior officers. This certification qualifies you to serve as a sniper team leader and trainer for other soldiers seeking advanced marksmanship skills, the general said as he studied the document. Less than 300 active duty soldiers currently hold this level of certification. Maya nodded, remembering the ceremony where she had received that certification after completing the most challenging military training of her career. General Morrison looked up at her with an expression of professional respect that had been completely absent from their previous conversations. Sergeant Chen, I believe I owe you considerably more than just an apology. General Morrison stood up from behind his desk and walked around to where Maya was sitting. His entire demeanor had changed from the previous day, and Maya could see genuine respect in his expression as he looked at her uniform more carefully. Sergeant Chen, may I examine your ribbon rack? the general asked politely. Maya stood at attention and allowed the general to study the various badges and ribbons on her uniform. Most soldiers would have overlooked many of them, seeing only routine qualification markers and standard service ribbons that most personnel earned during their careers. General Morrison's experienced eye moved slowly across each ribbon and badge, reading the small details that indicated specific achievements and qualifications. When his gaze reached a particular badge on the right side of her uniform, he stopped and looked more closely. The badge was small and unremarkable compared to some of the more colorful ribbons nearby. It consisted of a silver rifle surrounded by a wreath with small crossed arrows underneath. To most observers, it would appear to be just another marksmanship qualification that many soldiers earned during their service. The Advanced Designated Marksman Badge, General Morrison said quietly, recognition clear in his voice. I should have noticed this immediately when you first reported to our unit. Maya remained at attention while the general continued studying the badge. She had worn it proudly since earning it 18 months earlier, but very few people recognized its significance or understood the demanding requirements necessary to qualify for it. Sir, the badge is not widely known outside of specialized units, Maya said. Most soldiers are unfamiliar with the Advanced Designated Marksman program and its requirements. General Morrison stepped back and shook his head with what appeared to be embarrassment. Sergeant Chen, this badge represents completion of one of the most selective and demanding training programs in our entire military. Only soldiers with exceptional marksmanship skills and leadership potential are even allowed to attempt the qualification process. Maya relaxed slightly, sensing that the formal part of their conversation was ending, and that the general wanted to have a more personal discussion about her background and future role in the unit. The training was challenging, sir, but it prepared me for situations exactly like yesterday's mission. I am grateful for the opportunity to use those skills in support of our unit's objectives. General Morrison returned to his desk and picked up the thick personnel file that now contained Maya's complete service record. According to this documentation, you scored in the top 5% of all students who have completed the Advanced Designated Marksman program since it began 15 years ago. Maya felt a sense of pride hearing her achievements recognized by such a senior officer. She had worked harder during that training program than at any other time in her military career, pushing herself beyond what she had thought possible. The program included instruction on advanced ballistics, environmental factors, target analysis, and precision shooting at ranges exceeding 1,500 meters, Maya explained. We also learned leadership skills necessary for training other soldiers in marksmanship techniques. General Morrison sat down and gestured for Maya to take a seat as well. Sergeant Chen, I want to formally apologize for the way I have underestimated your capabilities since you arrived at our unit. Your specialized training and qualifications should have been recognized immediately. Maya appreciated the general's honesty and willingness to acknowledge his mistake. Sir, the administrative confusion during my transfer resulted in incomplete paperwork being sent to your unit. The error was not your fault. The general waved his hand dismissively. Regardless of the paperwork problems, I should have taken time to properly review your background before making assumptions about your abilities. A good commander does not make decisions based on incomplete information. Maya could see that General Morrison was genuinely troubled by his failure to recognize her qualifications, and she wanted to reassure him that no permanent damage had been done to their working relationship. Sir, if I may say so, yesterday's mission provided an excellent opportunity for me to demonstrate my capabilities under real combat conditions. Sometimes practical demonstration is more valuable than written credentials. General Morrison smiled, for the first time during their conversation. That is a diplomatic way of saying that actions speak louder than paperwork. Your performance yesterday certainly proved that point. The general opened Maya's file to a specific page and pointed to a particular entry. I also discovered that you were offered promotion to Sergeant First Class and assignment to an instructor position at the Advanced Designated Marksman School. You declined that opportunity in order to request assignment to a forward deployed combat unit. Maya nodded, remembering the difficult decision she had made 6 months earlier. Sir, I believed that my skills would be more valuable in a combat unit where I could directly support soldiers in dangerous situations. General Morrison stood up and extended his hand toward Maya in a gesture of professional respect between equals. Sergeant Chen, effective immediately, I'm assigning you as our unit's primary designated marksman and precision shooting instructor. Your expertise is exactly what this team needs. Maya stood and accepted the handshake, feeling a sense of belonging and purpose that had been missing since her transfer to the unit. Thank you, sir. I will not disappoint your confidence in me. The general walked with Maya toward the tent entrance. I also want you to begin training other soldiers in advanced marksmanship techniques. We have several promising marksmen who could benefit from your instruction and experience. As they stepped outside the tent, Maya could see Master Sergeant Thompson approaching with what appeared to be a Barrett rifle case. His expression showed approval and satisfaction, as if he had been expecting this conversation to take place. Sergeant Chen, Thompson called out as he approached them. I believe this belongs to you now. A precision rifle should be assigned to someone who can use it to its full potential. Maya accepted the Barrett rifle case with a sense of responsibility and honor. She had proven herself capable of using the weapon effectively, and now it would become a permanent part of her equipment. General Morrison shook hands with Maya one final time. Sergeant Chen, welcome to your new position as our unit's senior designated marksman. I have a feeling that yesterday's mission was just the beginning of your contributions to our operations. As Maya walked back toward her tent carrying the Barrett rifle, she reflected on the events of the past 2 days. Sometimes the most capable people are not immediately recognized for their abilities, but dedication and competent performance eventually reveal the truth about a person's qualifications and character.